Hi V, how are you?
Well, I'm doing great. How are you doing, Donna?
I'm doing great. Thank you, V. It's great to see you.
Great to see you as well. And this time we're connecting from our studio in Allston. And that's truly exciting. That means we're getting closer to having new equipment and giving you guys like different views of how these podcasts actually looks like. And that's exciting, right?
That is super exciting, guys. So bear with us because in a few months we'll probably have a full podcast set up if everything works out properly. And as you can see, I'm in with my green screen behind me, so it's coming along very well.
That's awesome. And it's always good to bring improvements and to evolve a little bit more so our listeners and whoever is watching us can, um, take full advantage of our information here, of whatever we're sharing here. So, always excited for that.
I completely agree. I completely. I agree completely. V. Oh my God, I completely messed up my words, but I agree completely, and I think it's always a better thing to provide accessibility to our students and people who are watching the podcast. So I'm very excited. But without further ado, I'm gonna start introducing this podcast, guys. Welcome, welcome. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Approaching Your Future with your hosts Dana Khan and Victor Ribeiro, where we take step forward towards your goals. And today we will be discussing how to get involved in a community. It's a topic that Victor and I are very familiar with, and we would love to share a bit of our tips with you guys. So, how to get involved in a community? What do you think, V?
Well, that's definitely a subject that I enjoy talking about. I think that here in Boston, or more specifically in the United States, um, you will start understanding after you go to college or even before you go to college that a lot of the biggest ideas are usually generated by a group and it's usually executed by a group. So that means you can never do any big project by yourself. And if you have a dream of joining a project or making a difference at something, you have to be part of a community, right?
I agree. I think that I think that you can create your community if you wish. You can create your own community and you can start from there. But it's always a nice thing to be able to get involved with a new community, with something that is or a community that you're familiar with back home and you want to get involved here or anything like that. These communities already exist here in Boston, specifically because it's a very diverse city. We have lots of college students, and so there's a place for everyone, and anything that you'd like you'll probably find your own community here.
Yes, and I think more specifically, I don't know about you, Donna, but for me, when I the first times that I actually got introduced to a community, I think it was, if you can call that a community, which I do, was when I was first in high school, for example. I noticed that there were different types of communities. Let's say people that were more athletic, well, people that are more for sports. There was a different community too in high school, which people defined as friend groups, right? But I think those are starts of communities because usually people are passionate about something. Let's say if I'm an athlete and I play football in school, and I'm really passionate about it, I will be connecting more and resonating more with people that are just as passionate as me. And which means that I could probably create this little community in my school that could expand and become something serious in the future. So when I was in high school, I joined the football team and I was exposed to that. And that made me notice the different types of communities that are in school and the different purposes, and I found that very interesting. But how was it for you, Donna?
That's super interesting, V. I think that's very cool because I think that the sports community in America is very different to the sports community outside, and I think that's pretty cool. For me personally, when I got into college and came here, I think that the first community I looked for was the Latin community in Boston, and I found it immediately. I was able to find it through my school. I joined the different Hispanic clubs, and I found my friends that were all kind of in the similar background as me. Um, and we've been friends for years, so it's been pretty cool, you know. Apart from that, I think that there's different communities you can join. For example, when I got here, I remember I really wanted to find a Jewish community to go to for like um, Fridays and like Shabbat and like do occasional holidays with. And I was able to find it too. I was able to find a Latin Jewish community that actually has their own Latin rabbi. That is the type of rabbi, and like I guess what type the type of part of the religion that I kind of grew up with back in Latin America. So it was very familiar to me, and I thought it was super cool to find it here in Boston. Very interesting.
Definitely very interesting, and it also shows us how different communities won't only be based in passions like towards activities. Let's say if you love music, it doesn't mean their community will only be limited to that, to music or physical activities or athletes. There are like communities that are more related to religion, and we see that a lot in different churches too in Boston. There are different types of churches. For example, like if you are from Brazil and you are Christian, or if you're Catholic, there will be churches that could have services in your language, for example, right? I mean, if you're here to learn English, we always recommend you to not be limited to staying inside of the community that speaks your language. I think it's always good to expand and like to learn more from other people. So, that means opening your mind to different types of people, right? But definitely like you see different communities also around religion. There are different communities that are more related to where people come from, like you said, Donna, like you were looking for a rabbin that was Latin, and that's understandable because Latins, like people that are from South America or Central America, if you speak a language that is different than English, and that's like consequently you will also express yourself differently, right? You have different ideas, you have different problems. So it is important to know that if you do feel homesick, or if you do want to be a little bit connected to your roots, there are communities like this, right? And that's really interesting, Donna. That's awesome.
Yeah, V, I agree. That's what's really cool about it. And I kind of want to take this opportunity to use this podcast as an interview for V. He doesn't know about this guy, so we'll tell him in a second. But if there's one person that I think that is very like prone to understanding how to get into a community, specifically when it's involved with tastes and what you like, because I think that entering into a community that is familiar to you, like your culture or your religion or your ethnicity, it tends to be easier because it's something that you grew up with, you're familiar with. When we try to insert ourselves in communities that have to do with our tastes and our likes, it is a bit harder because you find yourself in a place where there's cultural shock. There can be different cultures, different ways of handling those tastes and likes. So like I think that this would be a great opportunity for me to ask Victor, how did he get involved with the techno community? Victor is a huge fan of electronic music, and he started, and I'm giving your information, V, and you can expand on it, but he started DJing like more than 10 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, it's exactly 10 years ago. He was like 15, right? Around 13, 15. Um, and when he came here to the US, I kind of know this story, but I don't fully know it. So I'm taking the advantage. How did he get involved with the techno community in Boston? Did you start it? Did you come up? What was the process like? Tell me a bit more.
That I'm actually really happy that you're asking this question, and I think that the way I got introduced to the music, the underground techno community in Boston was very interesting to even to myself, right? So, all right, so I'll get started. I was in community college. I've always been into music production. I've always been a huge fan of music, and like you said, yes, I've been DJing since my 15s. I actually started learning when I was 13, right? But I started DJing around events and such, like when I was in my 15s, 16s. And I've always had that passion in me, right? Like I've always loved DJing. I've never been the type of person that enjoys parties for the sole purpose of being in a party. I've always liked to be in the behind the scenes, right? So being in Boston kind of like made me notice like I can make anything happen, right? I can make my group of friends and start producing and start making music and get around it. And I thought that was the best way to get introduced to electronic music, to in ways like more the production side of it. So I've always had that passion in me, and I was like already getting involved with different groups. But then my passion for electronic music always spoke louder than anything. And once I was on Facebook, and I found that there was a panel happening at Harvard University in which they brought local producers and producers from New York to talk exactly about this communities, but more specifically scenes, music scenes in Boston. And that was so interesting because at that moment, I was able to find a community for me. I did not know that I was finding a community. I knew that it was something that I wanted to get involved with. which consequently became the community that I'm a part of nowadays, you know? So it was really interesting. And one of the things that I did that day was like, I not only watched the whole panel, I gave my opinion, which brought people's attention to my voice, right? And after that, it was much easier to connect with whoever was speaking at that day, which was a local producer. His name is Jose, and we became friends, you know. And then after that, it's all story.
So what was the question that you asked? What made them call attention to you?
Yeah, so I remember very specifically they were talking about how to nurture your scene and how to get yourself out there. And I I don't like, my experience was more based on what I've lived locally in Brazil, and like I have a lot of friends in Brazil which comes from this different community, right? And they're working there. And I saw all these examples. I knew how people were getting themselves out there. And I remember this DJ that was in the panel asked one of the speakers, how do I get myself out there? They gave a response to him, but I'm like, all right, I want to also give my own response. I think that if I'm here to listen, I'm also here to help. And I don't know, I'm that type of person. Like if I'm in class, I like to speak, you know. I like to give my opinion. So I said, I remember telling him, it's like everyone said, find your community, find the way you speak with people, this and that. But no one said, find your sound. And I'm like, I'm going to be the person who's going to say that. And I was like, okay, find your sound, get involved, but be passionate about what you create and be original, right? And that's something that a lot of times people in this community, they take it as almost as common sense. But when you really think, it's really hard to find people that sees things this way. So I think that made me stand out a bit, and it was really cool. Like I said, I love talking, so I felt really great.
And now I'm just wondering, like, and how did the so then you asked this question about or you gave the advice of finding your own sound, and then how did the panel, or the producer who you came in contact with later on, his name was Jose, how did that grab his attention? Did he react in some way or another? Like, how did that work?
At the time, he didn't really tell me anything. Like he didn't really give a feedback, but he did invite me to go to his events every Tuesday. He did invite me to go to other events that he had, and I knew that that was kind of like him opening doors, because sometimes I mean, like we have an ego, and sometimes we get so like comfortable, right? Like thinking like I don't need to I don't need to run after anyone, or if you want me, you have to be direct and say I want to work with you. And it's not really like this. These opportunities, they come very like seamlessly. Like if you don't look ahead, you will never be able to notice. So I saw that, like, knowing that he was the producer of that night, and that he invited me, I'm like, okay, that means that there is a space for me as well. That means that I can get involved, that he knows if I get involved and I am consistent, he will know that I'm serious about it. So that was like when I saw the first opportunity, right? It's like, come join us, let's talk more. And that's how it starts. It's like the more you go, the more you get involved, the more you expand your ideas, and kind of like share your ideas, the more involved you are. So that was like more of a start for me.
I see that, and I actually, that takes me back to my own advice for getting into a community. I think which is, you have to place yourself where you want to be. And this comes from like moving a lot. I've moved a lot. I've moved to a lot of new countries, and I've had to insert myself in new communities. And the one thing that I will always carry with me, and it came from my mom. It was, when we would go to a new country, she would say, do you want to make friends? And I'm like, yeah, like I can't seem to get into this friend group or whatever. Like, they don't seem to talk to me. And she's like, okay, let's make a party at our house and you invite everyone that you want. That's the way that I would do it. It would be, you put yourself in that situation. You cannot wait for people to invite you. You cannot wait for people to, as Victor says, beg you to come work for them or ask you to come work for them, because it's not how life works. You need to place yourself where you want to be. So you want to make a new friend group, you go and you tell them, hey, let's go out this day, or you know what, I'm going to do something at my house, why don't you all come over? And same thing goes with a community. You're having an event, I want to be part of the community. Hey, can I come see your event? Hey, can I come check it out? How can I help? Can I get involved? Is there anything I can do? Like it's of course it's always good to know your value, and but going there and putting yourself in different positions, it doesn't take away from who you are. In fact, it adds, it shows the value that you give yourself, and that you know, you're aware that you can be valuable to a certain community. So I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned while when I transition into new places, is that if I want something, I need to do it. I need to get into it. I need to put myself where I want to be, you know?
That's very true, Donna. And when you mentioned that I'm a good person as an example of how to join communities, I would say the same about you. If you don't know, Donna has lived in many different countries in Central America, South America, and I bet that like when you're young, a lot of times that those are the times that you're really creating that side of you where you become sociable, where you discover yourself and know what you want a little bit. So it definitely makes a lot of sense that like there are different strategies to not only join communities but also like create friend groups which could eventually become a community, right? And I love the idea. I love the idea of like you know it's like you want to get to know me. All right, I'll make it easier for you. Come to my house. Let's have a conversation. Let's have a little party. And those are amazing opportunities. Actually, we're humans. We're social beings. Like there's like good things only happen when two sides are given effort. So you cannot just sit down and wait for things to come to you. And Donna, going a little bit back to the experience that I have and I've had in a music scene, it also taught me how to pitch my ideas and how to wait for the right time to pitch these ideas, right? Why? Because I noticed that a lot of people would come to us and just, I mean, that was like long after I got involved, and like I said, I got so involved that I started working for them, and now I'm a key player in this music scene. Um, Now I am one of those producers and organizers in the panel, right? And which is really interesting because it put me in different situations where I wasn't just that, like I was that person joining the scene and joining that community trying to get around. And right now I'm that person who's there and who's trying to give opportunity to those who wants to join, right? And that teaches me so much, Dana. Like that teaches me so much how to communicate. That teaches me so much how to sell my ideas, because you know that everyone there, they have a purpose. They're hungry too, and they also want to succeed. And that's really interesting because if you don't learn how to communicate these things, it's like it doesn't mean, like, for example, these things that I'm learning in the music scene, they don't only apply to the music scene. You can bring this to your life, you know and you can carry that along with you in your professional life as well, right? So I think that's one of the biggest insights that I've ever had. And I don't know, what do you think about it, like?
I agree, B. I think that's something that I'm learning recently, as I've also become more involved with the same community, with the music scene, the underground music scene in Boston, and that's something that I've learned a lot. Like you need to find the a good time to make your pitches. But not only that, I think that the other thing I've learned is that many of the things that you dream of can be done, like as in what I realized, with at least with joining or getting more involved with the music scene here, and with the same music scene Victor has been getting involved with for this past 3-4 years, is that whatever you want, you can make it a reality, but you need to put in your time and you need to put in your effort. And my point is, like, take action. Like, you can pitch whatever you want to whoever you want, but take that initiative, take action, tell them, hey, I already kind of started this. It's in the works. I want your help. Let's do this. Let's make it happen. This is what we need to do. Sometimes people, I think, there's always going to be a group work. There's always going to be a collective effort, right? But I think that sometimes you need to be the lead. You need to take the lead, and that's okay. And you need to also, as Victor says, understand when is the right moment to do so. But in this small community, especially in Boston, if you're in a small community and you want to make something happen, make it happen. There, you have nothing to lose. Make it happen.
Definitely. And I like to see Boston as a very entrepreneurial city because you have access to so much information, you have access to so many opportunities, right? And you're totally right. You have to make your own. Even if you are in a group of people that are making things happen, you have to make your own. You have to bring your own value. And These things, they only happen, guys, if you're really passionate about something. So that's why it's really important to join communities of things that you're really passionate about. If you're a journalist, you can join a journalism community and be able to add just as much value as I've felt like I added in the community that I joined. You know what I mean? So I do think it makes a huge difference when you're not only in a community but also in a community that does things that you're passionate about. This way you can add inputs. This way you can also make a difference. And guys, there are many communities, like we said. There are communities that are more related to music. There are communities that are more related to art. But there are also international communities. I mean, Approach has a huge community. We nurture a global community. However, Approach itself has a community. So if you are an international student and you study here at Approach, there are communities for you too. You just need to look for it. You just need to go after. Because, like we said, things will never come to you unless you are looking for them, you know? So yeah.
I agree, V, and I think that like it genuinely like the amount of different communities. Like I remember when I was at Emerson, there was a big Dungeon and Dragons community, and it was like I would see actually some of the Instagram posts, and they would like as a group like play D&D. And I thought it was interesting, right? Because like it's not a community that I would get involved with, but there is that, and there's also a community of, for example, at Emerson specifically, the school that we went to, there was a big community of alternative rock bands. Really like big music scene of alternative rock, alternative, like just like really experimental indie alternative. And I thought it was super interesting because I had never heard that type of music before. And it was a big community, they went to each other's shows, they promoted each other. So my point is, you can find whatever you want. Dance, there's a huge dance community here. There's as much as people from BPM, for example, that do shuffling, as much as people from salsa. I see there's a whole salsa community here that goes to the Havana Club every Friday. So like my point is, you can find whatever you want here, and you just have, as Victor said, you have to look for it. That's all. You just have to look for it.
Yeah, and like, to what you mentioned, the salsa community, it's like that's a perfect example of how you can access certain communities by just joining the right places. If you know that a salsa dancing class can lead you to weekly events, take advantage of that, because that means that they have that going on for a while, and that means that there's so much to learn, there's so much to explore, and so many people to get to know, right? So I would say, if you're looking for something, make sure you actually look for it. Make sure you actually dive deep into it, because it can make a huge difference in your life. It's like sometimes people treat things as hobbies. I'm the type of person that my hobbies, I go all the way with it. And that's the reason why I am this way in this community. You don't have to be like me, you don't have to be like us, actually, because we both are very involved in what we do. But if you are just a key player and you're there to have a good time and you're there to learn something and teach something, that's all you need. And I promise you, we promise you that the only good things would happen if you do the right, make the right choices and walk through things the right way. Like I said, knowing the right time for everything, right?
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, I think that's it. Be aware of the time, be aware of the way in which you communicate, and just be brave and put yourself out there. That's all you guys gotta know.
And I would like to add one thing, Dana. Joining the community sometimes might be, for some people, the hardest part. But to be quite honest, if you're really passionate about a community or a friend group, coexisting in those spaces is something that requires effort as well. And by that, I mean the way you carry yourself, you know, and that means everywhere, wherever you go, you just need to be yourself, right? But also know how people communicate and also know how things function, how the dynamics is. So you don't have to expect things to adapt to the way you are. When you're joining a community, one of the things that you learn is that you adapt to the way they operate things and you adapt to the way they communicate. And doesn't mean that you're not, it really doesn't mean that you're being a different person. It just means that you're really willing to join that group and you're really willing to learn about these things. So it's all worth it, guys. Just make sure you move yourself and really try to look for it. And look, if there is no community for you, create your own community. That's definitely something you can do.
Yeah, definitely possible, guys. You can always create your own community. It's what we've done here at Approach. We've created our own beautiful community of students, and we love that. And it's something that we enjoy and cherish and have it nurturing for 20 years. Um, but I think that's kind of what we wanted to show you guys today. Just a bit of tips of how to get involved in a community. If you're just arriving at Boston, you're welcome to send us a message, and we'll point you to the right places. And if you're not and you've been here for a while, also please, you're welcome to contact us. We are always happy to give more tips. And always happy to send you guys to the communities that we've seen around Boston that are of your interest. So I think that's it for today, guys. Do you want to add anything else, V?
No, exactly what you said. I sign like we say in Brazil, assino embaixo. I sign right under. You're totally right. And yes, if you're in Boston and you love electronic music, for example, feel free to hit us up. Or if you're just having trouble joining a friend group or a community or anything like this, let us know. We're really here to help. And that's why we do this. And we just want to make sure that you take full advantage of your experience here. And we want to make sure that the things that we've noticed that works with us, and the things that like we learned, we know that everyone can learn. So as long as you know that, you'll be all set.
Exactly, V. Thank you so much. Um, and I agree completely. So now that you guys know this, thank you for being here. That's it for today, guys. Thank you for tuning in to Approaching Your Future with your hosts Dana and Victor, where we discuss different cultural aspects of life in the United States, such as how to get involved in a community. And we'll be back next Friday at 2 p.m. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn your notifications on. And please make sure to follow us on Instagram at approach_USA to keep up with all the latest updates, live streams, and content that we put out. So thank you so much for being here, guys. Thank you so much, V. It was a great conversation, and it was awesome to be able to interview you and pick your brain for a bit.
Thank you so much, Dana, and thank you for the surprise. I actually feel I feel honored that you took this opportunity to actually get my insights and my opinions on this. And anytime if anyone wants to talk about it, I'm always up for it. Thank you, and have a great one, guys. I'll see you all next week.
Bye bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.